Welcome to the Gay Seniors Alliance podcast. I'm your host, Kendall, and I've been wanting to put together a podcast like this for several months, and I'm excited today to begin that journey. As gay men and women of a certain age, we have stories to tell and interests, concerns, and visions that are uniquely ours. And I hope that today we will start the journey of becoming a place where we can share those. I am very excited today to have as my first guest Kenneth Steven Price. He is a minister with Living Church Ministries, and as I've gotten to know him over the last few weeks, I found he has a great story to tell and insights that I think can be beneficial to all of us. So please help me welcome Kenneth Steven Price.
Kendall, how you doing this afternoon, this morning? Where did that clap come from?
Yeah, exactly. It's from the studio audience that we have here.
All right.
So, Kenneth, I really appreciate you doing this, and I'm excited to do that talk with you today because I think that you've got a lot of really cool things that you can add to the conversation. I do want to cover a lot of things as we get into this, but one of the first things I did want to ask you is kind of give us a little background of who you are and your coming out story and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's a mouthful. By the time you get to 58, I mean, you could spend hours and hours going through, a personal story. So how to compartmentalize that? Well, okay, so where do we start? I'm going to be 58 next month, and I came out in 1985. So, do the math, everyone. That was a very long time ago. There was still a woman by the name of Anita Bryant who was trying to stop all of us. I mean, hopefully we've evolved somewhat since then. I come from Orange County. It was just conservative. You could not be gay.
Right.
We did not have that conversation. And so I knew what, a lot of people don't, let me just say men, and this includes women too, but for my own story, I'm only familiar with my gender. So, a lot of men can play both roles, and a lot of them choose to stay in the closet and they get married and they write one of those stories. I did not write one of those stories. I knew at a very young age I was gay. And so when I was 18, I said, what does an 18-year-old brain do,
right.
when you come from that kind of conditioning? Well, you say, I think I'll go to West Hollywood and see what it means to be gay. So needless to say, I got into, yeah, I know. So needless to say, I got into some, a lot of drama when I was young. But, like you mentioned to your audience, I'm a minister. Let me preface this. I'm not a Christian minister. Okay, I did not, go back to any. It's called Living Church Ministries, but it's metaphysical based on A Course in Miracles. So I want to preface that because people might get the. So anyway, but so let's take 1985 to 2025, and I emerged with a great deal of wisdom. And I mean, it's not like I'm going to toot my own horn, but I have to, share this wisdom. No, I don't have to. I get to. And that's one of the things I want to come out in your podcast is how can I share this wisdom to help others? Because in that 40 years, there was a lot of pain and suffering that wasn't, it was necessary in my story. Can I speed it up for other people so they don't have to go through that?
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that you and I have talked about also is that, as people of a certain age, I'm a couple of years older. I'll be 61 next month. But as our generation, we are kind of the first generation of gay seniors that actually have a story to tell. If you think about it, the generation immediately before ours, they were lost. That is the age generation that we lost an entire generation. And the generations before them, you didn't talk about being gay. As an adult, as a kid, anything, it was silence. You never talked about it. And for our generation, even though when we were younger, it was still pretty much closeted and not being able to talk about it publicly, we were able to create this history that we can now share with others.
Because that's what we talked about before we did this interview. We are the first generation. So what are we going to create? And we could go on for hours, but here's the point. we survived, and I don't want to say survived. That kind of, it's got a little bit of victim language. Listen, we emerged from the AIDS pandemic. You know, I'm going to be 58. You said you're 61, and so, you know, it's like my godfather's a Vietnam War vet, and he sat me across from the kitchen table one evening, and he pointed his finger at me and he said, "Don't think your story was any less than mine." And that's the reason I get along so well with him, is that, you know, he's kind of like a mighty companion in moving beyond the story. That being said, there's going to be a lot. This is why I'm a minister now. There's a great deal of pain amongst gay seniors. It's not like you can just drop the story and walk away from it. A lot of what we're going to be doing together is moving through a grief process, not a wallowing process, not a storytelling, if there are stories. But a lot of us do have these open wounds that need extra care and attention and love, you know, to address. So this is, I find this to be a sacred assignment, and I know you feel the same way too. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this right now.
Right. Yeah, when I started this, I really wanted it to be a place where we, as our generation, could come together and find commonality or differences, but be able to discuss those and share those with each other. And I think that's important for our generation because there hasn't been one like us before. And I think we have a history to tell. And it's also, we have a responsibility, I think, to share our history as well. So I'm excited about that. You define yourself as a builder, designer, and counselor. How does that all go together?
Well, how do you use the word counselor? You know, as if I can, you know, help people. I've given that a lot of thought. I can't help it, but that's perfect because that would assume that people need help. I don't think anyone needs help. What I truly believe is that love is what I have to share. So I've been you know, massaging the word counselor. Bill, what was the other one I wrote down?
Builder and designer.
Yeah, I have a master's degree in architecture, and my whole life has been spent, you know, building. You know, my father put a hammer in my hand, you know, before I was 5 years old. So, I mean, everything about my life is construction, remodeling, repairing. I'm kinesthetic. So that's just what I do. And with the master's degree in architecture, you know, I like to design as well. So
they're all together. And then you have a website, which is reverendkennethprice.com. And on your website, you talk about having many paths, and you're a master of many paths. You craft with purpose, you awaken with passion, you live with conviction. What does that look like, and how do you manifest that?
I guess what it was Richard Rohr who said, I'm a master of all. What did he say? He said, a jack of all trades and a master of none. I should have put that down instead of master of many paths. You know what? I think people will look at the front page of my website and say, in a nutshell, that man's probably a seeker, and they'd be right.
Okay.
You know, I'm not gonna come here and say everything's wonderful in my life. As a matter of fact, you know, if I do, I'm not being honest with you. I will be honest and say that I have a great deal of challenge. I've always had many challenges, but I want to go even beyond that and say I've had more solutions than I've got challenges. And so when you see a website like this and you see someone who's not had a 9-to-5 career, you know, and is retiring at age, you know, 58 with an IRA and a 401k, you know, I've spent my life seeking answers, pursuing healing, and prioritizing my truth. So, you know, out of all that came a website which ChatGPT came up with a great tagline called "A Master of Many Paths." Right? I like that, by the way.
No, I think it's very cool, and it's a good sum up of everything. At what age did you start finding and realizing who you were, and start feeling that comfort level and knowing that you had something that you could share with other people, a story to tell, and that you were able to help other people go through their challenges?
You know, we do that our entire lives, whether we even realize it or not. And that's important to know. People think, like, it's kind of like, you know, when did I start, you know, helping. We all help people no matter what stage we're at. But I love the question, by the way. I just like to massage it. No, but to kind of give you a really solid answer, I obviously, if I came out when I was 18 in 1985 and sat at the bar stool at the Rage nightclub when I was 18 years old, I got into a little bit of trouble. All right, so
let me ask you this: the first time you went into a bar, did you run from the parking lot to the front door? Because I did that.
we got a lot of stories to share. We got 40 minutes. I'm going to cover them all.
Mine was like, don't let anybody see me going in, but I can't wait to get there.
I get sidetracked really fast, but that'll be for the next podcast.
Right.
No, so I got into a lot of drama at a young age. So I got into 12-step programs at a young age. So, and it was AA, Al-Anon, ACOA. It was real popular in the 80s and 90s, and it was the John Bradshaw generation. So, so when did I start helping people? Well, even as a young man, there was the 12 steps was about service, but that service, over the decades, it evolves, it changes, as we evolve and change. When you're young, you think you can help people. Well, and then you realize, wisdom sets in, and you realize, our role is to hold space. It just keeps evolving as we grow into seniors. In my story, it is still evolving, as if I'm arrived anywhere. No, I never have.
And at what point did you start to find that your ministry and having a part in a, for lack of a better term, faith or something like that, what point did you start to find that was what worked for you? Well, I think a lot of people, who are in our community, they run from faith. They run from, because of the way we've been treated for our entire lives by the church.
Yeah.
And I think that many of us have a longing to have a faith, but we have seen the exact opposite teachings of how we live our lives. So it's hard for us to be in that space.
That's you just went for the jugular. Thank you, Kendall. Yeah, they've used Christianity has been weaponized. Mm-hmm. And I'm the first one to say no more. As a matter of fact, for me to go back into this direction, I had a lot of pain to express. When I met Living, I met my teacher David Hoffmeister in 2017. I drove to Utah, and I had a lot of expression. I was a pissed off man. Mm-hmm. I said, if you guys use the word Jesus in this room, expect for an explosion. And so there were a lot of women in the room. And so the men, said, can we go outside in the desert and have that explosion? I said, that's good. because we all share a very similar victim story. And I'm not using victim in a negative connotation. Obviously, it's been so extraordinarily weaponized that the men in our community, and there's one other gay member in the Living Miracles community, and he stood up in front of David Hoffmeister. I remember this. It's even on YouTube, and he said, if you say Jesus in front of my gay community, they're all going to leave this room. So that's why I wanted to preface that my ordination is not Christian. It's A Course in Miracles, which has a completely different take on the man from 2,000 years ago.
Sure.
You cannot weaponize the Course in Miracles, Jesus.
And, for myself personally, what I found was growing up, I automatically felt like, okay, I can't be a member of the church because they preach against me. And then I moved to Atlanta in the 80s, and there was a church downtown Atlanta. It was a Methodist church that the Gay Pride Parade every year walked right in front of their church. And on Sunday afternoon, right at noon. And one year that church came out onto the sidewalk and offered water to the people walking by. And to me, that was like, that's what religion is about. That's what Christianity and faith are about. And I started going to that church like a lot of other gay people did, and it was in Midtown Atlanta. So it was right in our community. And then, I kind of have kept that. And then I moved back to my hometown a few years ago, and I found a church that I was really comfortable with, who told me that I could not be a member, that I could be a part of their church, but they could never make me a member. And that was when, for me, I was like, okay, organized religion, can't do it anymore. My relationship is with who my God is. And that's how I have to handle, how I handle it now.
I want to speak to both of those, both sides of those coins.
Okay.
Both sides of that coin, because we as a community will not be making any progress until we can find forgiveness in our hearts. Mm-hmm. But I'm not talking about the conventional, oh, we were wronged, but we're going to rise above that, because I have a teacher, his name is Keith Kavanaugh, Course in Miracles teacher, and he actually calls that forgiveness to destroy. Listen, forgiveness for us is going to be a very heroic and brave path, and that's why we need to be doing this, Kendall, because if we hold grievances in our hearts, it's only going to bounce back. A story that contains, yours is just one of countless. I have one too, so I guess the question, I'm not here to give any answers, I'm not here to proselytize, but we've got to start this conversation. If we just stay angry at the Christians, we're not going to move anywhere.
Right.
How are we going to move past that story and alchemize that story so that it can be, turned into wisdom? And I that's something I'm very passionate about, because, listen, I have great admiration for a lot of Christians. Look at Jimmy Carter. I mean, my God, one of the, we have great examples throughout history. And then we have, this, archaic belief in, and I don't want to go into it, because that's just going to create a negative podcast. So we've got work to do. And that's what this podcast is about, is we're all going to get together, and we're going to do the work together, because the one thing about churches is we can't do this alone.
Correct.
Perfect. So let's get this show on the road.
So as a member of a senior gay community, that's basically what we are. How do you see something like Gay Seniors Alliance or that kind of thing? How do you see that working for our community to help us move forward? Because, I'll be honest with you, I'm scared of a lot of things going into my later years. But also I feel very comfortable going into my later years in a lot of levels too. So how do you see something like this helping our community?
Well, I have to say this. It goes back to what I said earlier. We've got to move past our stories. And I'm not saying we can't stuff our stories. We can't, bypass our stories. So what are we going to do with them? I'll tell you what I've done with mine. I've used it to become what I call a wounded healer. I don't come into this ministerial symbol and say I've arrived at everything, arrived at anything. Certainly not a spiritual accomplishment, but I do profess humility and willingness and bravery. Okay, so let's all assemble for those three components: willingness, bravery, and what was the third one that I said? Maybe faith. That's the key component. You said it earlier. Faith in what? A sacrificial savior. Jesus Christ died for our sins. Are we gonna, give me a fucking break? No, excuse me, my language, but no, you can bleep that out. No, that's draconian. But we have to have faith in something, and that's my role. We can't have faith in something outside of ourselves. It has to come through an intermediary. And you know what? The biggest privilege that anybody could bestow on me is to use me as an intermediary. Let me love you until you can love yourself. I mean, how many times in the New Age community, you just got to love yourself? Well, How do you do that? It has to start with somebody. Somebody's got to love us. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to love each other. I keep cutting you off. It's your turn.
No, it's fine. And I think that's one of the issues that a lot of us in our community have is we're now 60, 50, 70 years old, and we still don't love ourselves.
Yeah.
How do we get to the point where we can love ourselves, because I think it's prevalent. And I think you can see that in some of the actions that happen in our community. How do we get to the point where we do love ourselves?
There's the question. Now, I can't come here and say I've got a whole bunch of. I'll share with what works for me. I don't have any answers, but as long as we've got the question, you nailed it. How do we love ourselves? Mm-hmm. I'll share how I do in mine. But I'm terribly interested in how others are doing theirs. Mine obviously, Course in Miracles. So I go down the path of non-duality. And what else do? I go jogging, but it's how do. I don't want to, take up too much. I don't want to go down a metaphysical rabbit hole, but maybe since you asked me that question, I'm a Course in Miracles student, so it's a non-dual path, and it doesn't try and create, this world. It doesn't try and it's not a New Age path. People misunderstand the Course in Miracles. It's not like you can improve your life, which is nothing. That's perfect. That's the New Age, but Course in Miracles backs away and tries to train the mind. What doesn't try? That's not the right word. It's a mind training psychological manual for unbelieving the matrix itself. I don't know if I defined it, but I just wanted to answer how I'm loving myself.
And I think that as we start to love ourselves, then we start to love our community as well. Because I think that probably when we were younger, there was still this concern about even being part of our community, where it wasn't always easy to love each other because, quite frankly, we weren't always aware of who was each other. We didn't know who our community was. A lot of that was secretive. But now that we are older, we have this history that is our community and our forefathers and who we are and that kind of thing, that I think it is important that we share those common experiences, but we also share our history with the younger generations who are coming up behind us. Now, I don't know about you, but one of the things that I found is it doesn't seem like they're really interested in our history, first of all. I think that, I told a kid the other day, I was like, you need to understand that there was a gay community before you could get married. There was a huge gay community, and you need to understand that it wasn't always easy as it is now. And it's still not easy, but it is easier than it was. Literally, we were looked at as walking death sentences, that people were just waiting on us to disappear. And we were the easy people to hate. And I think it's important that we teach the younger generation about that. But I think it's also important that we teach them the good parts of our community and how we came together and, joined together and worked together to make sure that we had a history and that we had a generation that would move forward into the future. How do we, as gay men and women of an older generation, how do we go about making sure that our stories are told and that our history is shared with generations coming up behind us?
Well, I have a friend who's an American Indian. Will is his first name. And the American Indians are great storytellers because they know the wisdom inherent in these, and they pass them down through generations as folklore. And so you're right, Kendall. We have that responsibility. That's a good question, and we all got to assemble to. I don't have an answer to that. I know. Here's what I know. I'm working on my book. I've been working on it for a very long time, and I keep setting it down. And I had to ask myself recently, what's the holdup? And I realized I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm staying with a friend, and I just heard it come out of my mouth the other day. I'm still writing the ending to my story. It's got to have a happy ending. And this is the important part about our stories. Yeah, things were difficult for us. Things were extreme and not beyond. They were beyond difficult. They were deadly. Not many. most of us are gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
That being said, those of us who came through the other side came out 10 times stronger. I've used the word wounded healer. I wish we could, spend some more time on that. But the courage and the bravery that it took to stand here in 2025 and to be able to do a podcast like this, this has instilled in us the demonstration of human resilience. And I don't want to say human resilience. I want to say soul resilience. If a soul can still have an open heart after all of that, then it's basically at this point, bring it on. This is love on steroids. Love is not unicorns and rainbows. It's saying, we were, in those parables, we were crucified. We were, and I don't want to make it sound like a victim, but I don't know any other language. We were, shunned. They expected us to die. But we're still here. What was it always to say? We're here, we're queer, get used to it. And now, hell hath no fury, but not in a vindictive way. I'm trying to find the right words for it. It's a voice of authority. It's a voice of wisdom. But in that authority and wisdom, there's a tenderness. It can hold both tenderness and voice at the same time. That's how I define wisdom.
Yeah, I think that, because of the pain that we did go through, and the, circumstances of our coming out and our journey into where we are today, there is a lot of pain. There's tremendous pain there. I mean, my niece asked me one day, she said, "How many people do you know that died of AIDS?" And I said, "Honey, I can't even tell you. I don't know. I don't know how many I had. I lost count at about 30. And that's a pain that, a lot of people don't understand. And how do you teach people that we came through it? We are stronger. We have a responsibility to all of those people before us that we lost. We have a responsibility to them to make sure that we live the best life we possibly can so that they know what's come about." Did I lose you? Kenneth, did I lose you?
And that's, and we're going to love ourselves. And that's what we're going to share. I think it has to come back to how we're going to heal ourselves first in this new venue, in this assembly. And I don't know what it's going to look like out there in the world, but I'm excited to find out. This is something, Grant, go ahead. I keep cutting you off.
No, absolutely. And by healing ourselves, I think that allows us to help others. Agree? I think I lost you again. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining in. We had some kinks here, but we're going to get better on this, I promise you. I do want to thank you all for coming in this week. We're going to post this, kinks and all. Maybe I should say warts and all. But we're going to post this, and I hope that you'll listen in, and hope that you would continue to join us. If you have ideas for future podcasts, or you would like to get on and tell your story, I'd love to hear from you. So make sure you send me a message. You can go over to our Patreon and check it out. Patreon.com/Gay Seniors Alliance. We're also on Facebook. We are also on Twitter. So check us out. Yes, I did say Twitter. We're still Twitter in my eyes. Anyway, thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. I hope that this is the first of many conversations that we can have as a community. And I wish you all a great day. Thank you for being with me, and have an awesome day. Thank you. Bye-bye.